Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Let's Talk. I am so excited to host my very own instructor, Dr. Abhishek Kumar. I must say, a very committed and passionate professor. He is originally from India. He moved into the US in 2015 to pursue a PhD program in the field of remote sensing at the University of Georgia, Department of Geography. He is currently a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Massachusetts Amherst.
I would say is like your self motivation. So if you have something like, dream to do big, then that keep you moving, always forward.
Clearly, applying for a higher degree program, even in your home country, requires a lot of processes. Talk less of applying to a program outside your home country. There is definitely more commitments to it. What would you say were the major steps you took to actualizing the goals you had?
Yeah, so basically, like, when I was applying or even started thinking to apply to the US universities, because I didn't apply to any university in my home country. I only applied yeah, to the US university. So I will basically talk about that, my own experience about that, So as an international student, there are like some materials which is needed for all the student, whether you are international or you belong to US, then still you need those minimum things. But apart from that, if you are an international student, let's say, you need some additional criteria like test of English as a foreign language, like TOEFL, which stands for, or there is a another English exam people take is IELTS, IELTS, which is more common in UK universities. But apart from that, what you need is you need to prepare a statement of purpose, basically what you want to do in your PhD. So that thing you need to prepare really well, and how you motivated towards this research journey. What is your educational background? What is your previous experiences? So you need to create a story, in that statement of purpose and aligned with your future goal. Let's say after you finish your PhD, where you want to see yourself, whether you want to become a professor, you want to work as a research scientist. So you need to mention those things. So basically you have to reflect your passion for research. So I put my heart and soul completely into that statement of purpose. So I think invested almost more than 2 to 3 months preparing that material. Yeah, because I was linking all my past stories and current situations and the future dreams, everything into that.
Yeah.
And then that is one thing. Then you need 3 very strong recommendation letters, which is really important if you are applying to US universities. So I was lucky to have great professors, like 2 professors in my own university who was willing to write recommendation letter for me. And the third one was from US, who became my PhD advisor actually in future. So because I was working with him in advance, like 1 year prior to coming to US. So we already published that time one peer-reviewed journal article, and I was working on a second manuscript with him that time. So basically you need to build a relationship also with your potential advisor if you are planning to apply for a PhD position, so that was another thing. Recommendation letter, statement of purpose. Then you need transcript also. So what happens if you are an international student, sometimes you need to translate also your transcript into English version if it is not in English. So that is another scenario. But in my case, luckily it was not that scenario. So I just had, it was in English, so did not translate that. But again, like, the system here is a GPA, like on scale of like, 1 to 5, like, there is a GPA system, but in my home country, it was different. It was 1 to 10 scale, so you need to again convert your that GPA into like, the US GPA, like how it stands like between like, 1 to 5. So I converted that. There are like online tools available, so you can do that. So those minimum requirements, like, you can find like what are the things. But also, like, if you have a publication, or even if you are preparing for a publication, I would highly recommend to put that as a, like, in preparation, or if it's in review, because those are really important, and that's like, make you competitive when you are applying for a PhD position. So I prepared all those materials, but for me, preparing the TOEFL was the toughest. Yeah, and I think I failed in my first attempt when I appeared for TOEFL exam for like the minimum requirement for university. Then I thought like my dream is crashed now. I didn't get the minimum score. So, but thankfully, university gave me like, that conditional acceptance letter, that if you can give us the like updated TOEFL score, the new TOEFL score, then we will accept you. So I was like, okay, I have like another opportunity. So in my second attempt, actually, I got that,
Oh, that
So
is so good.
yeah. So overall, like, in terms of material, there are like statement of purpose, then your CV, then 3 strong recommendation letter, then transcript, and if you have publication, so example of publication. So those 5 things are like, I would say prepare really well when you are applying for PhD position.
So let's go back to the applications. I imagine that there will be people watching this video who also want to submit for a PhD position, a master's position, or even for a postdoctoral research position. What can you say would make one competitive for a higher degree position as an international student? And how does the process work?
Yeah, so there are 2 aspects of this, like, if you are applying for a PhD position, or if you are talking about postdoc position after you finishing, your PhD. So first I will touch with the PhD, when you are applying for PhD, for example.
Yes.
So first of all, like, if you are applying for a PhD, like, what you need to consider, most important part is like, whether you have a like, secured funding or not for PhD, because paying from your pocket is not feasible, especially if you are planning to study in US universities, like, so expensive if you want to pay from your pocket. So if you get a fellowship, let's say, there are like basically 2 major funding sources people student get when they apply for PhD position. One is teaching assistantship, and another is research assistantship. So getting a teaching assistantship, first one, is the most competitive, because there are like so many people will be competing for the same funding resources, because that is a departmental funding, or you can say a university funding, which is like limited budget. Every department has, or university has, limited budget to fund like limited number of students. So if you are applying for, let's say, like teaching assistants, if you want to compete for that, then I would say try to have a very good TOEFL and GRE score, because those are really important if you are an international student specifically. Because if you are a teaching assistant, then you need to have a fluent English, because they need a TOEFL score in speaking section. Let's say there are, in my university, it was the criteria, you need to get 26 out of 30, for example. Otherwise, you can't be a teaching assistant. So that's why getting the high score in that really important. Yeah. Second is the publication, like, if you have really good publication record, because if you are applying for a PhD position, all the professor or the department, they look for like, whether this student, even if you haven't published and some publication are under review, or let's say you are under preparation, they try to see like, if the student has the potential to publish or not, because that's what all the research university stands for, like, how many
Yeah.
publications they are producing from the university. So that's really important. Then also try to have a working relationship, with the good professors, like who can write a really good, or not a good, very strong recommendation letter. Don't ask just for recommendation letter to the professor, ask for a strong
A
recommendation
strong
letter.
one.
Yeah, if they can write a strong, then only ask them to write a letter, otherwise like try to look for another professor because that's really important when you're applying to US university. That matters a lot. And definitely prepare your statement of purpose in a way, like, that is going to be a research area in future, where the research trend is moving on. Don't try to prepare something which is outdated, or like, which is repetitive, already have done so many research in that, because everyone wants to see something new. If you are doing a PhD, your PhD will be something novel. So if you have a novel idea, then you can convert those ideas into your
Yeah.
dissertation, right? So try to devote some time into that. So these are really important points, especially for if you are like, and that's also important for research assistantship. Only thing differs in research assistantship, it's less competitive because it depends on your advisor, who is going to fund you.
Yes.
Because if he wants to hire, or he or she wants to hire you, then department has little less role to play. Just you need to meet the minimum requirement of the department, and then your professor will say like, I want to hire this student. That's the case of the, when you are applying for PhD. In case of postdoc, let's say, like, so postdoc, again, like, publication matters a lot, because if you are applying for a postdoc position in a research lab, all the PI, like, going to spend their money, like project money on you, because they want something out of you also. They want to make their career from your like, contribution, as well as it will make your career as well, like if you are targeting, like, let's say in future tenure track position. But definitely they want, like, whether you have potential to publish, how many publication you have, and also in what kind of journal you have published, let's say. Because there are, like, people publish in low impact factor journal, which, like, let's say you have 10 publication, but in low impact factor journal, that is not going to qualify you in a very high research, R1 rank university, for example. So those are really important points. And try to make your CV, like, like try to add every month, like something new in your CV, so that when you finish your PhD, you will have a very strong CV, when you are applying for postdoc position, then you can, like, because your CV matters and publication
Very
matters.
important.
Yeah, and have a technical skills according to the, like, in your specialization, whatever field you are working in. Try to have those technical skills which are required, especially like statistical skills required in every field. You can see, like, and there are like software skill people are acquiring, but these are skills. It's easy to acquire now because there are online platforms available to learn those skills. People can, like, just enroll in some courses, learn that in 1 month or 2 months. So it's not like previous scenario, like, with internet connection, like everything became so easier nowadays.
Wow. I mean, every point you shared is great. So, for the sake of people out there who are wondering about some of the job opportunities after having a PhD or like a postdoc, what are some of the job opportunities you can share with them?
Yeah, so that is really important, because that's what students are
Yes.
mainly interested. Like, if you are like, okay, so what will be my future, after I finish my PhD, after I spend 5 years of journey, or like 6, 7 years, let's say, uh, whether it's worth, investing that much of time of my life, because that is kind of your important time of the life also when you
Yeah.
are like, So it's really important to know what are the opportunities available. Some people just think like, okay, PhD means like, you can just become a professor, but that's not the scenario, nowadays. Like there
Yeah.
are plenty of opportunities available after PhD.
Okay.
So definitely the first thing people have the dream job is like, okay, go for tenure track position, become a professor full time. And so that means the tenure track is where you can do research as well as teach.
Mm.
But to get that, you need to have very high number of publication when you finish your PhD. Getting directly, that tenure track from PhD is very rare, unless you are a very exceptional PhD student
Yes.
and very good publication track. Then second option comes after that is like, let's say if you haven't published so many, during your PhD, but still you want to go for tenure track position, then people choose the second option, go for postdoc,
Mm.
because this is an intermediate option, because
Okay.
during your postdoc research you can join a research lab and build your publication. You can make a number of publication and then make your CV strong, and then you can apply for tenure track, let's say after 2 to 3 years, like how long your postdoc period is. Some people go for 2 years, 3 years postdoc. That's the typical range.
Mm.
So that's a second option. Then there is third option is, if you just want, if you are just interested in teaching position, let's say, if you are not interested in research, then also like there are teaching like colleges you can join, or like you can be mentor of like young student, like just become a teacher, like teach there and share your like skills there. Then there is fourth option is like you can go for academic job, but not in research. Like people choose like administrative role, for example, they become like financial consultant for like research center, for example, at like research university, but they are not utilizing like not going to do like in their own research field, but they are choosing something different. And apart from that, like if you want to go for industrial job, there is another option, like if you want to make a lot of money. People like make a lot of money in US, especially if you have really good
Industry.
technical
Mm.
skills, and after coming from PhD, there are very high paying jobs, like you just need to support the product development team, like apply your research skill and tell like those. So there are like research and development, R&D position in
Okay.
industrial jobs. So that's another opportunity. Then there is like if you want to go for a government job, let's say if you are a US citizen, for example, but for international student it's difficult to join the government like institution here, because
Yeah.
there are some restriction for international student. But if you are a US citizen, like there is like opportunity to work in government institution, like do the research in national labs. And there are like other options are there, is like you can become your own boss, like you can start your own company if you have a awesome idea, for example, like let's say you have developed something very novel research skill which you want to convert into a product. For
Hmm.
example, we developed a sensor during when I was doing PhD for cyanobacteria remote sensing, which is very novel. And we received requests from so many national labs to like, export that like
Hmm.
instrument we built in our lab. But we
Wow.
never wanted to sell that. We just wanted to like, we said them like, we just want to collaborate with you. We don't want to sell this thing. So, but if you wanted to start a company, there is an option, like you can start a company out of that. So there are like bunch of opportunities. It's not limited, depending on like what is your interest and where you see yourself. If you are enjoying what you are doing wherever you are, that matters a lot. I think that.
Wow, that's great. I like the idea of even being an entrepreneur, because in the PhD and postdoc positions, you are being trained to develop some things of your own. So that is an awesome idea. Thank you, Dr. Abhishek, for sharing your experience and inspiring other students, including both international and local students. You can check out Dr. Abhishek's website to find out more about his research. Although in our next video, he would speak about the research that he does, but definitely check out his website for works or the papers that he has already published in some of the ongoing projects he is a part of right now. We will take a break here, and in our next video, Abhishek talks about cyanobacteria. You don't want to miss that. Link is posted in bio. I remain your host, Emelia. Let's enjoy science together. Thank you.